In 1992, a psychiatrist took a group of volunteers and removed all artificial light from their environment. Complete darkness, 14 hours every night. What he found, accidentally, was not what he was looking for, and it reveals one of the most quietly profound glitches in the human brain, a glitch that is running inside you right now, and has been your entire life. Thomas Wehr worked at the National Institute of Mental Health, and the experiment was originally about sleep. He wanted to know what happens to the human body when you remove the artificial light that modern life is built around. So he took his volunteers and he gave them 14 hours of darkness every night, the way humans lived for 300,000 years, before electricity, before gas lamps, before the light bulb changed everything. Within weeks, without anyone instructing them, every single participant settled into the same pattern: 4 hours of sleep, 1 to 2 hours of quiet wakefulness in the middle of the night, then 4 more hours of sleep. Nobody planned this. Nobody was told to do it. Their bodies simply did it, as if something ancient had been waiting inside them the whole time, buried under centuries of artificial light, finally given room to surface. And here's what Weir did not expect. When he measured their brain states during that middle of night window, the quiet wakefulness between the two phases of sleep, he found something that had no modern equivalent: elevated prolactin, the same hormone released during deep meditation or moments after physical intimacy, the hormone responsible for genuine biological calm. The participants described it the same way: peaceful, still, present in a way that ordinary waking life never quite allows. What Weir had stumbled onto was not a sleep anomaly. It was a lost state of human consciousness, a window of time that existed inside every single one of your ancestors, built into the architecture of every human night for 300,000 years. And it is gone. Not because we evolved past it, because we turned the lights on, and this right here is the glitch. Not just in your sleep, in everything. Because what Weir's experiment accidentally revealed is this: your brain is still running ancient programming in a world that has changed faster than any brain can follow. And the consequences of that mismatch are not limited to the middle of the night. They are running through every part of your waking life. To understand the scale of the mismatch, you need to understand what your brain was actually built for. 2 million years ago, your ancestors lived on open ground. No walls, no locks, just earth, darkness, and everything that wanted to eat them. In that world, what kept you alive was not strength, it was not speed, it was a fast, automatic threat detection system, one that fired before you could think, because thinking too long and taking too long meant dying. The threats your brain learned to flag were not the obvious ones, not the mammoth in the open field. You could see that from a mile away. The ones that killed you were the quiet ones, small, hidden, gone before you could process them. Spiders, snakes, scorpions. Your brain built hard automatic responses to all of them. Scientists call these prepared fears. These fears were not learned or chosen. Rather, they came pre-installed on your code. Here's the proof. Researchers showed images to infants, babies who had never seen a spider, never been warmed, never had a single bad experience, and measured their physical response. The infants had a faster heart rate, wider eyes, and sharper attention before a single word was ever spoken to them. The software was already running. Now consider this. Spiders kill fewer than 10 people on Earth every year. Cars kill 1.35 million. And yet, a spider in the corner of this room would make your heart race in a way a car parked 3 feet away never has. And that is the mismatch made visible. Your brain built a 2 million year threat response to the spider. It has had 130 years to process the car. So it doesn't. And this same mismatch, this ancient brain firing ancient signals in a modern world, is running through things that have nothing to do with spiders. Think about Sunday night. Everything is fine, your doors are locked, nothing is wrong, and yet something in your chest is tight. A low, sourceless dread with no explanation and no cure. Here is the explanation. For 2 million years, stillness and quiet did not mean safety. They meant a predator was close. Your brain learned that an empty threat meter was not a good sign. It was a signal that something had gone quiet because it was watching you. So when you sit in your apartment on a Sunday night with nothing wrong, your ancient brain reads that stillness as suspicious. It starts scanning for threats it cannot find. And when it cannot find one, it manufactures the feeling anyway. That is not a character flaw. That is ancient software running a scan designed for a world that no longer exists. Or think about those 3 words from your manager. Do you have a minute? Your body responds immediately. Cold hands, tight chest, something close to dread, over a notification. To your ancient brain, your manager is not an employer. They are the tribal chieftain. And in the world your brain was built for, a private summons from the chieftain meant one thing: exile, alone, without the tribe, without protection. In that world, exile was not a career setback, it was death. Your body is preparing for physical banishment from your species over just a few words on a screen. The Sunday dread, the freeze at the notification, the sting from a stranger's comment online, a rejection signal firing from a brain that still believes 150 people are all that stand between you and the wilderness. These are not weaknesses. These are not irrational responses. These are the same ancient software running different programs in a world it was never designed for. And here is what makes it so hard to see. The software never announces itself. It just fires, and you feel the output, the dread, the freeze, the spiral, without ever seeing the code underneath. Which brings us back to Wehr, and what his experiment tells us about the one thing that actually helps. When Wehr's volunteers woke in the dark during the middle of night window, calm, still, flooded with prolactin, they were not anxious. They were not spiraling. They were not frozen by a notification or unraveling over a comment. They were present. And in that presence, something was possible that is almost impossible to access in ordinary, modern life. The pause. That word matters. So stay with it for a moment. Deep inside your brain, beneath your personality, your memories, your humor, the person you would describe if someone asked you who you are, there is a small almond-shaped structure. It's called the amygdala. The amygdala is your alarm system, your ancient guardian, built and refined over 2 million years for one purpose: to keep you alive by detecting threats before your conscious mind has a chance to evaluate them. And it is fast in a way that is almost impossible to appreciate until you understand what fast actually means here. When the amygdala detects a pattern that matches an ancient threat, it fires. Before you can form a single conscious thought, before logic can raise its hand, the amygdala has already sent the signal. Flood the body with cortisol, tighten the chest, dilate the pupils, prepare to run or fight. Scientists call this the amygdala hijack, and it happens to every person alive every single day. It fires at the spider and at the notification, at the presentation and at the quietness of Sunday night, at the stranger's comment and at the email. It does not distinguish between the ancient threat and the modern inconvenience, because it cannot. It was built to be fast, not accurate. In the old world, firing and being wrong cost you nothing. Not firing and being wrong cost you your life. So the amygdala fires constantly at things that cannot hurt you, at threats that do not exist in the form it imagines them. And you feel it as anxiety, as dread, as the freeze, as the spiral that starts with one message and ends an hour later with your heart still slightly too fast. Now here is the part that connects back to Wehr. For all of history, your ancestors had something that you do not. They had the dark. Not the dark as something to fear, though they feared it too, but the dark as a container, a forced stillness of 14 hours of quiet that the modern world has completely erased. And inside that stillness, inside that middle of the night window that Wehr's experiment accidentally rediscovered, something happened that no amount of daytime productivity can replicate. The amygdala cooled. Not permanently. It would fire again in the morning. It would fire for the rest of their lives because it was built to. But in those quiet hours between first and second sleep, in that prolactin-flooded state of calm presence, your ancestors had access to something essential. They could hear themselves think. Not the anxious, reactive thinking of a brain mid-hijack, but the slow, clear thinking of a mind that has stepped back from the alarm long enough to ask, is this real? That is the pause, and the pause is everything. Because between the alarm and the reaction, between the amygdala firing and what you do next, there is a space. Most people never find it because they are already inside the reaction before they even know the alarm went off. But that space is where your actual life is lived. Not in the anxiety, not in the freeze, not in the spiral. In the moment just after the alarm fires, when you look at it clearly and ask one question, is this real? Is this my ancient brain reading Sunday stillness as a predator circling outside? Is this 2 million years of tribal exile code firing at a 3-word notification? Is this a rejection signal from a species that survived by never being cast out, reacting to just a stranger on a screen? Or is this an actual threat in the actual world I actually live in? Most of the time, the honest answer is no. The alarm is real, but the threat is ancient, and you are not living in that world anymore. The amygdala does not know that. It cannot know that. It was not built to know that, but you can know it. And that asymmetry, the amygdala firing ancient signals and you being the one thing in the system that can evaluate them, is not a burden. It's the only advantage you have. Your ancestors did not have a word for the amygdala. They did not have Wehr's research or evolutionary biology or the vocabulary to describe what was happening inside them when the chieftain called a private meeting or in the quiet of the night felt suddenly wrong. But they had the dark. They had the stillness. They had 14 hours of forced quiet that gave the alarm time to settle before morning came and the world asked something of them again. And you have lost that. Not gradually, overnight, one light bulb at a time. And in its place, you have screens, notifications, the comments section, a manager's message at 11 at night, alarm after alarm after alarm, with no stillness in between to let any of them cool. This is why Wehr's experiment matters. Not because you need to sleep in 2 phases, and not because you need to sit in complete darkness for 14 hours, but because what his volunteers found in that middle of the night window, that quiet, that presence, that prolactin-flooded calm, is proof that the pause still exists inside you. It has not evolved away. It has not been deleted. It's just been buried. So the practice, if there is one, is not complicated. It is simply learning to find the pause without the darkness forcing it on you. To catch the amygdala mid-fire and ask the one question your ancestors asked in the quiet hours between first and second sleep without ever having words for it. Is this real or is this old? The amygdala will keep firing. It will fire tomorrow. It will fire for the rest of your life because it was built to, and because in many cases it is still right. Not every alarm is a glitch. Some threats are real. Some warnings are worth hearing. Your job, the only job that belongs entirely to you, is to decide which ones those are, which alarms are worth listening to, and which ones you can thank for their service and walk on by.